Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Tales from the Fandom. It is the month of February, and we are here having another episode, and I've got a great guest off of Instagram. Misi is joining me today. How are you doing today, Misi?
I am doing pretty well. It's chilly outside in North Carolina, but I'm bundled up, so I'm pretty happy with that. It's not the summer yet, so I'm all good.
I know. I remember living in North Carolina for 2 years, and when it was winter time, I was like, oh gosh. I mean, it's not terribly cold, but then if there's like ice or snow, the driving got a little bit dicey. I found myself in a ditch one time trying to drive
Oh
to work.
goodness.
I was like, nope, I'm not going to be in for work today.
I grew up in a small town on the East Coast. I'm now located in Charlotte, but I grew up in a small town on the East Coast, and we were pretty used to hurricanes and inclement weather like that. But as soon as winter hit, if we saw so much as a puddle frosted over, schools shut down. I'm not
Hmm.
talking about like a single snowflake. I'm talking like a single puddle frosted over. Everybody was like, "Oh, school's canceled." So coming from that to Charlotte, where you can still go out and get sushi in the middle of what's basically the equivalent of a Charlotte blizzard. So really, just like a nice, pretty snowstorm. It's completely wild just how weather so drastically affects how different people are in different regions, even in the same state. It's wild.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like I went to school here in Florida, back in like the so like mid 90s high school
Hmm.
time, and I remember like they wouldn't shut down for like hurricanes or tropical storms until it got like super close, like a day or two away. They would be like, okay, we're shutting down, and now like with my kids in school, it's totally different. Like lightning and thunder, they won't even like let the kids out of school for release. It's like, okay, it's definitely changed.
Things have definitely changed. Are you aware of the Waffle House um, phenomenon when it comes to
Yes.
natural disasters? I think that is the absolute funniest thing. When I heard about it, I went and did some Google looking, and I was like, "Is this actually true?" And it turns out, like, yeah, they actually pay attention to Waffle House and whether or not Waffle House is open or not. And I'm just like, that is absolutely hilarious.
It is, especially here in like, because I mean, you're in the South with North Carolina, and I'm here in Florida. And it's like, it is absolutely 100% true for people that are listening, wherever you may be. The Waffle House indicator is fact. Like, if
It
it's closed,
is.
if the Waffle House is closed down, you know that there's something wrong.
You get out of there. As soon as Waffle House closes or even talks about closing, you skedaddle. If Waffle House is open, though, you'll survive.
Exactly. Now, before we get started, Misi, I do just want to make a mention to people that are listening. We're recording January 7th. This episode comes out in February.
Mhm.
I do want to make mention, I always tell my guests, this is a pet friendly podcast. You have heard cats and dogs and birds on the podcast in previous episodes. The Tales from the Fandom House now has a 9-week old puppy as of recording. And so if you happen to hear her barking, she's a puppy, and I gotta be accommodating to her needs and stuff. But just so you know, that's Teddy in the background. She's not too happy being in a crate at the moment. She's not in a crate. She's in a big playpen, but
Right.
you know
She's still not happy being cooped up.
right, because we're still working on the whole you don't go to the bathroom in the inside of the house thing, and
Oh,
so we're working on that.
well, you're going to send me a picture of Teddy after the podcast, right? After we
Abs-
record?
Absolutely. I mean, Teddy's going to be having her own Instagram at some point. Already got the name locked down, and creating content with a 9-week old puppy is really hard because she does not sit still.
Who's to say she's going to sit still after she's 9 weeks old?
Oh, my fingers are crossed on this one. I told
Just
her,
just
I
do
said,
video content, cute video content of her flopping around. Everybody's going to go crazy for it. It's a puppy,
that's right.
so.
Now, Misi, we're here to talk fandom. Of course, Waffle House we
Mhm.
could totally talk about all day. Although I haven't been to one in years and years and years. Um, but there's actually a TV show that you are very into. We have never talked about it on the podcast before, so I'm super excited to get to learn about it because it's a show I've not watched either, and it's a show called White Collar.
Yes. So White Collar is one of the most underrated shows of all time. Like, I'm an absolute firm believer of this. Basically, White Collar. I'll give you a brief synopsis.
Okay.
It aired. What are the years? It started in 2009 and it ended in 2014. So it is over by now. So if you do want to go and watch, I did a quick Google search to make sure I got those dates right. But if you want to go and watch it, you don't have to wait for anything new to come out. So this is a really good one to sit down and watch over the course of maybe a quarantine period or something like that. But it's currently on Hulu, I think. It was on Netflix for a long time, but now I think it's on Hulu. So are you familiar with the term a blue collar job?
Yes, I am.
All right, and are you familiar with the term a white collar job?
Yes, I am.
All right, so for anybody who's unfamiliar, because I know that I wasn't familiar with the term white collar until after I watched the show, blue collar, you know, is going to be your people who are working more everyday lives, everyday jobs. So say, you know, like a truck driver, things like that. Whereas white collar are going to be people who work more in offices and things like that. Would you agree to that?
I would absolutely agree to it. Although I know recently, at least, you know, pandemic wise, white collar, like more getting into like polo shirts or you know, nicer, like not super white collar-y shirts as it ascribes to. But you know, I got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, agreed. So White Collar, the show, is set in that kind of environment, but the entire premise of the show is based around this one man. His name is Neil Caffrey. Don't worry, this is not a spoiler. You find out in the first episode of the show. But Neil Caffrey is a criminal who is an art thief, a forger, basically high white collar crime. And he has been locked away. He's been caught by an FBI agent named Peter Burke, who caught him maybe 5 years ago or something like that. And he escaped. Neil Caffrey did. And he escaped with only a couple of days left on his sentence. And so Peter Burke goes after him again and is like, hey, like, what's up? Why'd you do this? So he shares kind of what happened. I'm not going to really explain that because I don't want to spoil it for you. But after talking to him for a minute, he ends up identifying a piece of another case that he was working on and somehow kind of like weaseling his way into the case and being like, hey, I can be your informant. I can be like your white collar criminal informant. And so he gets released from prison in custody of this FBI agent. And throughout the course of the show, he actually goes and solves these really high profile art crimes, currency crimes, digital crime, just all these really interesting crimes that you wouldn't normally see on something like NCIS. And so he solves all of these really interesting crimes using his background as a high profile criminal. And it is absolutely so much fun. And each episode is split into its own miniature story. Each season has an overarching storyline, and the entire show has one storyline as well. So you're following 3 storylines per episode, which honestly you feel like it would be a lot, but it's actually not a lot to follow. It's kind of like in, say the show Avatar: The Last Airbender, the ultimate goal is to defeat the Fire Lord, but in each season, you know, he has to learn the element, but in each episode something small is happening. So it's that kind of thing, where it's like small stories, medium story, big story. So it is absolutely hilarious, absolutely amazing. It's a live action show, so it is not animated. And for anybody that may have seen Magic Mike, one of the main character dancers is the main character. So you already know that it's going to be fun to watch, or at least look at.
My goodness.
Are you familiar with the actor Willie Garrison?
Yeah. I actually pulled up the cast list and I was like, look, I know him.
Yeah, so Willie Garrison was in it as well. He unfortunately recently passed away. But he was in the show and he plays one of, I think, the most iconic roles in the entire show. He plays a character named Mozzie. And Mozzie is kind of like a uncle / father / brother / friend figure to Neil Caffrey, to the criminal. And Mozzie is also, as a side, a criminal, but he is a massive conspiracy theorist as well. And so throughout the entire show, something happens and Mozzie's like, oh my gosh, but I told you, like the FBI is always listening, even though he's friends with the FBI agent as well. And so he's just like, you know, he'll do things like, he's like, but have you heard? And you know how people are saying like, oh, you know, if a conspiracy theorist ever tells you that the moon landing was faked, you just turn to them and be like, you believe in the moon? That's kind of like the vibe that Mozzie gives, but like he completely 100% somehow believes in this completely outlandish conspiracy theory. It is absolutely hilarious. Mozzie is one of the best treasures of the entire show. And as you get to the final seasons, you learn so much more about him as a character, and you start to realize he's not just the crazy little nut. He's not just the conspiracy theorist. He actually has so much more going for him in terms of character development. And speaking of character development, that's also something that I really like about the show. I feel like a lot of shows, they kind of force character development, if you will. They're like, oh, this character, is in a lot of episodes, so we need to grow this character. They don't focus on that for this show. Yes, every single character does have development, but they don't push the development as much as they push the storyline, and the development happens with the story. So that's something that I really, really like. They make all of this feel so natural, and it genuinely makes you feel like you're just watching somebody's outlandish life. Somebody's just crazy life. It is so good. It is so much fun. The only thing I would say is if you're under the age of 10, it's probably not for you. Not because of the regular episodes, but because there is an occasional episode where something happens that you're like, maybe you want to have a parent for that. I know I grew up in a very strict Christian home, and there was an episode or so that my mother had us skip. Definitely made me confused to the overall season story, but, she had us skip it. And then watching it again as an adult, I went back and I was like, these are not that bad. And then I was like, wait a minute, but as a 10-year-old, it would have been terrible.
Right. I know that with our kids, because they're like in 8th and 7th grade. Like when there's questionable stuff, we'll watch it with them. Mm-hmm. So that way, like if they have any questions or stuff that needs to be answered. But yeah, I totally understand that. And I remember, like, because you brought it up and I pulled up the cast list and I was like, I remember ads for this show because I remember with Tiffany Thiessen, like I would always see her in the ads for it and I'd be like, oh, she's in a show. Like I know her from Saved by the Bell, but I never watched it. I don't know why.
It is absolutely phenomenal. I highly recommend this show. There are 3 shows that I recommend on this earth that everybody watch at least once. And even if they don't love it, at least they've seen it and it made me happy. But this is one of those 3 shows. Absolutely love it. Tiffany, like you're saying, she actually plays the FBI agent's wife, which is so funny. And she is absolutely amazing. There's some scenes where she goes and does things that the FBI agent wouldn't necessarily be in support of, but he doesn't want to get his wife, jailed and, go to prison. And so he keeps quiet. And so it creates this entire conundrum in some events, and it is absolutely hilarious. And actually, Tiffany, her character, is best friends with Mozzie. So she herself is a very pragmatic, the character is an event planner, very pragmatic, very, on top of things. She is, I would probably say, like somewhere between a type A, type B personality, leaning a little bit towards type A. But then pairing her with Mozzie makes it so funny. They have wine nights where they'll sit down and watch a movie, and then he'll go into conspiracies about the movie and she'll sit there and drink wine and listen to it. It is absolutely, their friendship is amazing. It is absolutely amazing.
I love when you get characters that have just character development that just it's not rushed. It takes time. It you let it sit, you let it, you get to marinate with it and just have these wonderful fleshed out characters that aren't rushed, and you get to have it, you get to be like, oh, I remember back then and now they're this way, and it's such a wonderful thing.
Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, there's definitely characters who I feel like, and I'm not going to name any of them because I don't want to upset people with their favorites. There's definitely people or characters who I feel like their character development was a little more rushed than it should have been. But with this show, there's not a single character where I feel like their development wasn't rushed. And if it was a little bit rushed, it was for a reason. That character's leaving the show, so they need to wrap up the story. Right. Their contract ends. And, you can't really help something like that. That's something that's just based on contract. But everything, this show is absolutely fantastic. Great character development. I have absolutely 0 problems with casting. I think that every single character was perfectly cast. Amazingly cast. And there's also really great... Oh, sorry, my cat just hopped up on my lap. Hey, girl. But there's also a lot of really great diversity in the show. And so with that diversity, it also doesn't feel forced. Like I was saying with the character development, they make it feel so natural. And that diversity, it really makes you feel like you're watching just what life is. Very diverse people in a diverse setting. Because this show also happens in New York City. And so you're going to meet a lot of diversity in New York City. I mean, I've been there. I didn't see one person who didn't feel unique. just like an anime convention. But so this show has so much diversity, and they do a really good job of putting that out there. And for the show starting in 2009, which I realize isn't that long ago, but still it's before a lot of people started to be like, hey, we want to see more diversity. For
Right.
that, this show did so well, so well. One of the main characters, for example, she is a black woman who is also gay, and in later seasons becomes a single mother. And so right there, you're hitting so much diversity with one character. You know, you also have one of the other main characters is a black man who they definitely don't focus on him being a black man in New York City a lot, but occasionally he'll say something and you're like, oh, that's how he experiences life in this show. Like that's his experience going through the world like that. And so how he reacts to something is going to be different than say the FBI agent, though, the main FBI agent, Peter Berg, who is a white man. So you can see kind of how they subtly slide that in. It makes it feel so natural for the diversity. It's so interesting and so cool. In one of the first seasons before she left the show, another agent was a darker Latina. I guess she's Puerto Rican or something. I'm not exactly sure, but she definitely looked black, but her last name was Cruz. And so right there, they're representing different kinds of Latino as well. So it's just so cool. It's so interesting to see. And then Neil Caffrey, the criminal FBI agent, he lives in the home of a rich, older, widowed woman who is black. Her husband passed away. They do a lot of black characters because they in New York, you know, that's a lot of what you see as well.
Mm-hmm.
But passed away, and so you expect, you know, she's just, you know, some quiet little old lady. Her husband was another criminal, and she herself is absolutely fantastic at singing jazz music, is really great, like with poker and things like, and so they just like flesh out even like the small characters. They flesh everybody out so well. It is so beautiful. I love this show so much. I rewatch it probably every year and a half to 2 years. I'm not joking.
Now, how did you originally get into the show? Like, how did you come across it as far as being like, this is a show that I'm going to watch? Was it just sitting down with your parents and watching it?
So my mom is actually not the biggest fan of this show. She thinks it's very good, but she's one of those people that prefers to sit down on a Sunday afternoon and watch a Hallmark movie. And so it was not really watching it with my parents. And so the way I actually learned about this was my sisters. I got grounded a lot as a child. And so I did not have the opportunity to start new shows myself. I'm talking like every other month I was grounded. I was a terrible child. I was great, but I was terrible. And so my sisters, in one of my many grounding episodes, actually found the show. And then after I was ungrounded, introduced it to me. So I actually found out about it through two of my three sisters. There's four of us. And so I found out about it through my sisters. So I guess for me, not only do I think the show is absolutely fantastic, but to me, I also have kind of like a connection with it because my sisters and we would all watch it together. And when I was grounded, if I missed something that was going to be super big for the next episode, they would kind of fill me in without really giving a spoiler. So for me, it's kind of like just a special show to watch. And then to make it even more special, in college, when I met my now husband, one of the first things we started talking about outside of anime, where we were from, and the class we were in together, was white collar. So for me, like, I have so many connections to this show. It is so good. It is so good. I absolutely love this show.
Why do you feel, because I know that it was airing on USA, which isn't the greatest like channel, because I know between like USA and like TNT or TBS, you'd get like really great shows but no one watching them, or not enough people watching them.
Right.
Why do you think white collar wasn't getting the love, or isn't getting the love nowadays?
So I have a couple of reasons why I feel like it might not have gotten the same love. The first being obviously the channel that it airs on. You know, it's not something that you traditionally go and you flip onto that channel and you're like, oh great, this is exactly what I wanted to see. Like usually somebody goes and watches something else. And I cannot remember what time of the week it was airing, but I always remember thinking like, oh, this is super inconvenient. And what we would do is we would actually record it. And so if you remember those days, we would go and actually record the episode. And so we'd have to watch it later. So I also remember just thinking it had a super inconvenient airing time. Again, I don't remember what time it aired. I didn't watch it then, so like it wasn't relevant to me. I would watch it the next day at a more appropriate hour. Right. And so I feel like between the channel it was on and additionally the time that it aired, that just wasn't a great combination. People weren't usually looking for that right then. And then also, I feel like another reason that it might not have done fantastically is because the writers were not giving in to like, hey, the fans want this to happen. Like the writers did what the show felt natural. And so a lot of people might have been unhappy in that moment, but really looking back, I feel like the show was very true to itself, which I know that a lot of times, you know, a show will, or a show's writer will kind of give in fans and be like, okay, enough people want to see this happen. It feels like it could then potentially, no, that's not what White Collar did. They really stuck with it, and they stuck with this one storyline. And just as an example, during the last season, it wasn't even a full typical season's length. It's much shorter, and they wrapped up the story when the story wrapped up. So it wasn't like they were pushing it or anything like that. They just let the story happen to them. And so, you know, it was clearly a written story, but they didn't like push a narrative with it or anything like that. And so I feel like just for a couple of those reasons, it might not have been as popular. And then also, just this one's just my own personal, like, oh, I wonder. But I also have to always wonder if it didn't do quite as well because a lot of people were watching other crime shows that were easier to follow in a single sitting, whereas White Collar had all of those overarching storylines and plot lines. And so between having to follow the plot line or sit down and just be like, oh, well, this is going on in NCIS Miami this week, you know, like it's one story. And so it might have also been easier to follow in terms of what a crime show offered then. So those are just like a couple of my own theories as to why it didn't get the recognition I feel like it deserved.
Okay. Well, and I know you mentioned before, like at the start, you say that you watch it like every couple of years, you watch it over.
Yes.
What keeps you coming back to it?
So I think that the connections with the characters is something I'm always going to enjoy, and that's not necessarily me, you know, like seeing myself in the characters, but me seeing like, oh, this is something very human that I feel like, Neil Caffrey, for example, you know, he starts out as a criminal and he's always a criminal throughout the show. But as much as he tries to improve himself, something always happens to keep him feel like he's coming back, and he just doesn't feel like he's making progress. And you just are like, oh, that's very realistic that somebody tries to make this progress with themselves, tries to grow, and then there's something that they feel like is always holding them back. And so I feel like that's one thing that keeps drawing me back. It's just the character growth isn't linear. And so I feel like that's something that you don't see in a lot of shows. You see a lot of characters who their growth just feels like a one-way street. You know, they're point A to point B to point C. Whereas for this one, they may have point A, point A1, point A2, and then they fall back to A1, and then they finally go to B. You know, so like there's constantly that ebb and flow of growth and development. And then also, I think something else I really like about it is that they introduce a different world to people. And so when I say high collar, white collar crime, I'm talking about like high collar crime. Like some of the art pieces that they recover are worth millions of dollars. And so you learn actually a little bit about art and about history and things like that as you go, which is actually really funny. And so every time I watch it, even if I think I've seen it like 5 times at this point, the show, even after watching it all these times, I still feel like I'm learning something new about art, history, and culture. And I still feel like I'm also noticing little things, you know, maybe about the way like a character arches the eyebrow and how that completely changes the way that I view that scene. And so I feel like the acting is just so spot on as well that you always feel like you're picking up on something from that show. So there's some things. And then lastly, on more of a personal note, I have 2 celebrity crushes, and Matt Bomer, the main character, happens to be one of them.
just you know, random happenstance.
Right, yeah. I really like kind of the dark hair, you know, kind of the lithely built kind of guy, and he happens to perfectly fit that, and I think he's so cute. So yeah.
Well, it is definitely going to be on my list. I love shows that kind of fall in that, like, I love the multi like stories that are going on, like the episode story and then the season, and then like having it have a whole like series long like story arc. I love that kind of layers of storytelling.
They're absolutely phenomenal. And what's just a kind of a warning, but not necessarily like don't watch the show warning. They don't shy away from character death. So, you know, they definitely don't kill off the main character. But I would say just keep a box of tissues near you, because even if you don't cry, you're going to be blowing your nose at least a few times throughout a season. because even if you're not attached to that character, you're going to see the other characters attached to that character, and just how they react is just absolutely heartbreaking in some of these instances. So definitely just keep a tissue box nearby.
I'll have to make sure to do that, because as I've gotten older, I find myself definitely getting like that emotional connection to things a lot more. And I sometimes I'm like, dang, I wish I wouldn't. But at the same time, like, it's good to just connect with the characters and shows that I'm watching.
Yes, for sure. It's been interesting as I've rewatched it each time. My connection with the characters in terms of seeing them die again, or seeing different characters die in a new way for the first time. So kind of, just seeing how it happens, but just my brain maturing, I see it in a different way. And I'm like, oh, that's why everybody is so sad in the show. And so it's something that I think that when I was watching it at 14, that's definitely different than when I'm watching it now at 24. And so it's been so cool to see how I age with the show as well. It's been really interesting.
Absolutely. Now, on the flip side of White Collar, we have
Mm-hmm.
a anime that I know my kids have watched, I think, all the seasons. I'm not too sure. And then they'd watch it over again. Like, they'd get to the end of whatever was out, and then they'd be like, "Okay, we're starting it over again." I'm like, there's other things out there to watch, and they're like,
No,
"Yeah, we
there's
know."
not.
But you're also into My Hero Academia.
Yes, I am into basically any kind of show that there is out there. I've also seen some K dramas, animes, cartoons. I am opposed to nothing as long as the storyline is great, and I think that the storyline is what really hooked me into My Hero for sure. I got interested in it because I kept getting spoilers every time I went to a convention back prior to the pandemic, and I really ended up enjoying it. And now I cosplay multiple characters from that show. It is so good. I absolutely love it. And apparently, the creator also recently announced that they are getting ready to start planning or wrapping up the end of the manga. And so they're not going to be dragging it out for 500 episodes, which is actually really nice to hear, because as much as I love the characters and I love the show, I don't like filler. And so far, My Hero has done a really great job of keeping filler to a very bare minimum. So I've really liked that so far.
I know exactly what shows you're talking about when it's like, oh gosh, 100 episodes of filler later, and you're like, when are we getting back to the main story?
I watched Bleach when I was really young. It was my second anime that I ever watched, and I was not allowed to watch anime as a child because I was told it was of the devil. But I watched it on my iPod Touch under the bed sheets at like 3 a.m. That's when I watched anime, and I watched Bleach. And I'll tell you, my first one was Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, and so very little spoilers there. It was a very straightforward show. And then I go, and I had not encountered I had not encountered fillers in a show before. That wasn't something I had come across, because that's mainly like an anime type of thing.
Right.
And so then I watched Bleach, and I'll tell you, I was so confused when I got to the Bount arc, and I was like, where did this come from? 110 episodes later or something like that, it feels like. Suddenly, they're back to the original story, and I was like, wait, what happened to the Bount arc? I was so confused. So yeah, that's definitely something I feel like scares a lot of people away from bigger shows. In terms of length of the show, not necessarily in terms of popularity.
Yeah.
But even in popularity, I feel like fillers, they're just like, I'm scared to touch that.
Yeah, I had the same issue when I was watching Naruto, where it's like, okay, Naruto's doing filler for like 2 years, and then we're resuming the show. And by then, like, I had watched all the filler. By the time the show got back, I was like, I can't. I'm done with it. I just can't watch it anymore.
I'm very proud to say that I watched all of Naruto, all like so how many hundreds episodes, and then I watched the first couple of episodes of Shippuden, and that is when I gave out. When we got back to the actual canon content,
Yep.
is when I finally gave up.
Yep, that's like, I think I watched a few episodes of that, and then I was like, I can't, like, I don't, by that time, like, my life was so different for like anime watching. I was like, I don't have time for this anymore. It just
Yeah.
stunk. Now, how did you get into My Hero? Was it more of a, like, going to like conventions and stumbling across it there, or did people just keep telling you to watch it? Like, where did you first get your start with it?
So I would go to anime conventions and see a lot of My Hero cosplayers. Of course, though, I wouldn't realize that they were My Hero, but I
Hmm.
kept hearing people call somebody, like, oh, like Deku, and I run around and be like, wait, that means like useless, like what on earth? And I'd be so confused about that. And I would hear people be like, oh, you're just an extra, and I just, a Bakugo cosplayer. And I'd be like, that's not very nice, but I was so confused about it. So I eventually asked somebody, I was like, why are you calling them that? Like, that's not very nice. And they turned to me and they're like, it's part of the show. Like, you need to go watch the show. And I was like, oh, okay. And so additionally, I had a number of friends who were watching it and they were starting to cosplay from it at the time. And I had enough friends cosplaying from it that I knew personally that at some point when enough people cosplay from something, you're like, okay, something has to be pretty decent about this source material for it to actually be like worth cosplaying.
Right.
And so I decided to give it a whirl, and within about 48 hours, I had watched everything that was out.
Oh my
So that is how
gosh.
I got my start. Now, they only had like a season and a half out at the
Oh,
time,
okay.
but I was
Okay.
also working like a full-time job. So I was tired, but I was happy. And with that, it got me attached to some of the characters. And strangely, I'm not actually attached to Deku. I'm more attached to Todoroki and Bakugo and Uraraka as characters. And I think that's just because to me, as fun as Izuku Midoriya is, he's not necessarily somebody that I'm excited to watch. I'm excited for his story, but I don't find him as interesting in terms of development. I feel like his development is much more linear than the other characters. And like I was saying earlier, I absolutely love non-linear character development, and his feels very linear to me. Now, that linear movement of his character development is definitely a little jumpy. So like he's very static and then jumps forward by like 100 meters and then stays still for another 100.
Hmm.
But all of the rest of the characters, I feel like their development is much more interesting. And so I've enjoyed watching the other characters develop over time. And then also, of course, I want to know what happens to the characters in terms of the overarching storyline. So, yeah.
Oh my goodness. You got into My Hero,
Hmm.
and you got your character, and so you are more of you're not like the oh gosh, I forgot the character name. Deku. Like you're
Yeah.
not Deku, but you're into like the some of the other like. And would you call them like they're not like main characters? Are they like
Um,
side characters? Or are they? Because I know that there's like a lot of rotation with different characters that show up.
yeah. They're the damn extras. No, I'm just kidding. But no, so I definitely say they're supporting cast. They are definitely not main characters, but I'd say they're like the main supporting cast. Since I feel like the main supporting cast are the characters like Katsuki Bakugo, you have Shoto Todoroki, Ochaku Uraraka, Tenya Ida, Kirishima, Aizawa, Denki Kaminari, and Sue Asui. I'd say those are kind of like the main supporting protagonists, if you will. Um, so yeah, that's kind of my own like how I view the characters, but I definitely view them as more interesting than Deku. Just that's my own personal thoughts. Just I find them more interesting, and maybe it's just the fact that I am an adult, and I say that because I have two sister-in-laws, who one is 19 and the other one is right about 10 or 11 right now, and the 19-year-old about a year ago last when we first started talking about My Hero together, she really liked Deku, but she also found the other characters intriguing. And now she's not as into Deku and she finds the other more characters more interesting like I do. Whereas the 10 or 11-year-old really likes Deku. And so I'm wondering if that's kind of like an age thing as well. Like the younger child might prefer the more straightforward linear character development because to them that shows growth.
Hmm.
And so it makes me wonder, if that's something that just based on age or where somebody is in their stage of life is going to influence them to maybe like a character more. Just because I'm seeing
Gotcha.
the way that the youngest sister-in-law, very straightforward about who she likes. The next one used to be that, but as she's grown, she started to enjoy more of the characters I have. And then I've straight out just enjoyed those characters. So it just really makes me wonder.
Okay. When like before we started recording, you had said that My Hero is like your number one anime out of like.
Well, so it's Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and
Okay.
then My Hero closely
Got.
after, listed like
Okay.
tied with a couple of other ones. But in terms of what's coming out right now, it's definitely number one.
Okay. What is it that sets it to that level of this is like top tier for you?
Hmm. So outside of the development, I think that it's getting to see another side of superheroes. Right now, we have a lot of superhero content coming out of the US from the MCU and from the DCU and other similar things where we have, the Flash TV show and just we have so much superhero content coming out to where they're already a superhero or they are adults and they've already kind of figured out their power, or if they haven't figured out their power yet, they figure it out very, very quickly and go on to be a hero, right?
Right.
But with My Hero, something that is so interesting, and this might be the same draw for this character Spider-Man, for the MCU Spider-Man for me, is that they're still figuring themselves out. They're still figuring out their abilities. They're still figuring out what it means to be a hero. And so I think that growth is something that we don't see in a lot of hero media. And so I really, really like getting to see that from a different point in time for a hero's career. And so I think that's one thing that really is standing out about the show to me, that I think is just one of the big things. And then also there's always that thing of where push comes to shove, somebody's just going to figure it out eventually, like maybe you're in a new job and you're quite unsure of what to do, but then it comes down to like the final minute and you manage to get it down in the last second. I feel like it's the same thing here, of where you just have kind of that explosive growth suddenly where you're like, your life depends on it. Not necessarily your life for your job, but your life in this show, like the character's life depends on that. And so they're pushed to grow. And I really like that as well. I'm definitely more of a shonen than a shoujo kind of person. And I feel like that's not something we get in kind of the shoujo shows, whereas in shonen, we get a lot of that explosive growth based on like the life and death scenarios, which is something that I really, really like.
Okay. As somebody, I think I've watched like 2 episodes of it because they were doing like the testing, and he had Deku, I believe, had like the hair, and I guess he ate it or did something with it, and then he's like crashing to the ground, and like I think I got to that part and then I just stopped because I didn't know what else to do with the show at that point.
You keep watching. You keep watching.
Oh my gosh. But my kids, like they devoured it because their cousin was super into it and dressed up as one of the characters with like a purple neck for Halloween one year.
With a purple neck.
Like stitches around the Dobby.
Yes, I know who you're talking about. I was like, there's a couple that have purple around their necks. So you're gonna be more elaborative. But okay. With the stitches, that's narrowed it down. Yes. We're talking about Dobby.
Okay, yeah. She dressed up as Dobby. Yeah, it was like, oh, they got like super like this is their first anime that they got into, and I was like, okay. I mean, I've heard it's really good.
Yeah, they picked a good one to get into. This is definitely, I think, one that's a little bit easier to get into because there's so much merchandise out for it now as well that it's also easy to find other people walking around repping My Hero Academia merchandise, so it's easy to find somebody to connect with on that. But then the story also is just really fun. It's really captivating, and it isn't always serious the entire time. So that they are school kids, so they still have like the school arc, where they might have a festival or something like that. So it's definitely, I feel like it has a lot of different facets that make it really fun and easy to get into. And just when you feel like you're going to start getting tired of kind of the heavier portion of the show, they suddenly hit you with a spring festival where everybody dances. So I mean, like it kind of keeps you on your toes as well, which makes it really fun. And you can always come back to the show and there's going to be something fun and different. So yeah, the show, I think that your kids picked a really good one to get into for sure.
Out of curiosity, because I'm old, and I know the longevity of certain animes that are around. Do you think My Hero Academia is going to be one of those animes that like 10, 20 years down the road, like we're still talking about it, seeing people dress up in cosplay for it at conventions, or is it going to be something that you feel like maybe it'll fade away a little bit?
So I feel like that's difficult to say because we don't have the finale yet, and so it kind of depends on how the show wraps up. And from what I know, because I'm not ahead on the manga, I'm not caught up on the manga even, so no manga spoilers, please, from anybody contacting me about this afterwards. But from what I know, the manga is so far going in a direction that is making a lot of fans very happy in terms of the completion or how the characters are starting to wrap up or grow or things like that. And so if the anime follows from what my understanding of the manga is, I think that it will definitely wrap up very well. And so if that happens, I think that it could definitely be a show that we continue to talk about for a decade and enjoy, and that a lot of people still cosplay and everything like that. But if they decide to kind of go wonky with it, if you will, and just not really do it justice, then this could be a show that crashes and burns within a couple of moments. It's like Game of Thrones. Yeah, everybody had like
I
the
was just
cult
thinking
following.
that.
And then the final season. I also have not seen Game of Thrones. All I know is that there is a red wedding, dragons, and they crashed and burned in the last season. That is all I know. And so if they do something similar to that, where it's just not very good for the last season, it could very well be a show that just crashes and burns like nobody's business. So I think that's really going to just have to depend on how they wrap up the show. But if they continue going like they have been, I definitely think it will be something that we talk about for a while. And then additionally, just because of the character's popularity, I think that we're going to continue to get the younger generation into it. So that, say that somebody cosplays All Might, somebody can be like, oh, what hero are you? And they're like, I'm All Might. Go watch My Hero. It's about superheroes. And because of the current American craze with superheroes, that's going to be something that interests the younger generation as well. So if done well, I think that it will be. But if it's not done well, it's going to crash and burn just like Game of Thrones. That's my personal opinion.
I totally understand that because, as a person that enjoyed Game of Thrones, and then we got to the last season, and then just seeing the split and like how the fan just seeing it like fade so quickly from stuff, it was just mind blowing to just witness that.
Genuinely, I feel like, and keep in mind, like I said, I have not watched Game of Thrones, but I feel like I went one day from seeing Game of Thrones like every other post online to the next day seeing everybody complain about it, and then the next day there was nothing.
Yep.
So in the span of like less than a week, the show just lost all relevancy, and I feel like it just went down so quickly. So I just hope that doesn't happen to My Hero though, because I genuinely do really like the characters. I think that they're fun, they're engaging, and I think that they are unique. I think that this show has for what we can get in this day and age, a pretty unique premise for the show.
Right. One of the things, and it's obvious, it's not obvious because people are listening and they're not looking at what I'm looking at.
Okay.
The reason that I stumbled across you, or you stumbled across me, is that we were on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know how it happened. I can't remember who followed who first. But you cosplay, and
I do.
and I looked back to figure out like which thing I saw first, and it was your shockingly a My Hero Academia cosplay.
Of course, I feel like those
Um,
kind of rocketed me above the 1K mark in terms of following.
yeah, back in it's like March of 2020, so like right before pandemic times. It was you wearing like a pink, almost like a fuku, but with the long like
Yeah,
long robe type sleeves
yeah. I
for
call it my
Uraraka.
Ochako kimono.
Yes, and that was the first photo that I liked, and ever since then, you have incredibly wonderful content that you create with your
Thank you.
cosplay. So, how did you get into cosplay? Like, where did you get your start, and why?
Yeah. So I, like most young ladies growing up in the Americas, absolutely loved dress up as a kid. And my mom has countless pictures of me dressed up in wedding dresses, or like the little girls' wedding dresses, or the princess gowns. But one of my favorite things to dress up in was this little, I'd say probably like 1950s little dress that I don't even know where it came from, but I loved to put on that dress, and I would just pretend to be a character from a book that I had read. And so I wonder if that's like my first experience, like kind of cosplaying. But I love to dress up. And then as I got older, that's not really something that people say you can do.
Hmm.
And I have a friend named Caroline who she is an artist as well. Let me pull up her page right now. So on Instagram, I'm just pulling it up right now so that way I can go ahead and plug her because I think her stuff is so much fun. But I've actually commissioned her for a couple of pieces as well. But my friend Caroline, she has an art page, Krols, CROLS _art_ page. And she cosplayed to Animazement 2017. And I was like, oh, well, can I go with you? You know, like I've got family that also lives in Raleigh, so we can stay with them. You know, we can do it on the cheap because I was a college student and she was just wrapping up high school. So we went and did that. And that was my very first time actually cosplaying. I did Baby Nell from Bleach, which I have not seen cosplayed by other than like one or two people, and never in person. It's always been online that I've seen them. And I also cosplayed Chloe Bourgeois from Miraculous Ladybug, who I think, by the way, they did very dirty in the show. And so she and I cosplayed there. And so she's the one that actually introduced me to cosplay. And she doesn't cosplay as much as I do. She does more art. But I am always thankful for the fact that she was just like, yeah, let's do it. She helped me put together my first cosplay, the Baby Nell one. She helped me put that together and figure it out. And I would probably not have felt as comfortable going to an anime convention for the first time if it was not for her. So she definitely a shout out to her for sure.
That's really awesome that you were able to go with somebody and have that like first baby steps in with somebody else, because I even as me as the old person going to a convention, like it's overwhelming, it's a lot, and then just to like to go and to cosplay is I couldn't imagine it.
Yeah, I'll say this to this day, we don't go to a lot of the same conventions just because we're located in slightly different Carolina con circuits. So I go to slightly more of the Western North Carolina ones, where she goes to a little bit more of the Eastern North Carolina ones and a little bit of Virginia area. And then I also tend to go further south while she goes north. But to this day, if we see each other at a convention, I try and carve out time to just like grab lunch with her or something like that. It's always so cool to get to see her. And we knew each other from high school prior. We were in piano competitions together. So, you know, going and seeing that like there was somebody who I already considered to be a fairly normal person that could also do this. And I was like, okay, they're like, you know, maybe I could do this too. And I had wanted to go to a convention for a long time, but she was the one that really was like, come do it with me. And I was like, okay, let's do this. And so yeah, that I think was a really special experience, just to kind of get to experience for the first time with a friend versus going by myself and just being like, I don't have any friends here, which I realize, you know, like there's nothing wrong with going by yourself. But for me and my anxiety riddled self, it was so helpful to go with somebody for the very first time.
Absolutely. Now, how do you choose who you're going to cosplay? Is it more that you like the character? Is it that you like the outfit? Or is it a combination of both?
I feel like that answer is just now starting to evolve again. So when I started cosplaying, I had a very, very big baby face. Not so much that I looked like a baby, but more so that at the age of 21, people were like, oh, how old are you? 14? No? Wow. And so I was choosing a lot of characters that I felt like I would suit. Because, you know, if I'm going to do a cosplay, I want to do something that I felt comfortable with. And I don't know that I would have necessarily felt comfortable doing a character that I didn't feel like I was doing a good job with. And that's just my own personal feelings on the matter. I know a lot of people who cosplay a character they look nothing alike with, and they do absolutely fantastic. But I know for me, and just me being such a type A personality, I'd continue to nitpick my appearance and just continue to drag myself down. And so when I started cosplaying, I was cosplaying a lot of characters that I felt that I could do well in terms of the age, and that's how I started out with Chloe and Nell. And then I started doing some other characters that I was like, oh, this one seems fun. So I did Jack Frost from Rise of the Guardians, which, by the way, joined Netflix just a few days ago. And so should go watch that as well. I also did Mavis from Hotel Transylvania. I did Kim Possible. So all of these you can see are kind of like teen characters.
Right.
So I did a lot of teens. And then my face started to finally grow to my age. And I still definitely have, like, I still feel young for my age in terms of my appearance. But I finally started to not look like a teenager. And so I no longer feel like I can pull off some of the teen characters as well. And so what I look for now is instead I look for a character that I, A, really like, B, that I like their outfit, and that C, I feel like I can actually be myself, an adult in. So I don't necessarily feel like I can be my full adult self in, say, Kim Possible. And I'll still wear her to probably another one or two conventions, but I just don't feel like I pull her off as well anymore.
Right.
I definitely don't feel like I pull off Chloe as well anymore. I just nitpick myself. I am my own worst critic. And so I just go and I pick the characters that I feel like I'm also going to be happy with my own appearance in. So, for example, I recently did Mirko from My Hero Academia. So she's a bunny hero. She is an adult woman. She's one of the pro heroes right then. And I feel very comfortable in her. And I did not think that I would, because she wears a unitard that likes to ride up very high on the leg. So it shows a lot of thigh. And so I was like, oh, going into this, like, I'm not a very fit person. Like, I'm thin, but I'm not fit. And so I was like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to feel about this, because she's very much a martial artist. You know, she's got like massive biceps and everything. But putting her on, I was like, I absolutely love this. I feel like an adult. I feel like I'm having fun as an adult. You know, nothing weird. Just I feel like I'm actually my age. I feel like I'm enjoying who I am. And so that's just kind of what I'm looking for right now in cosplays. And I also recently cosplayed Sucrose from Genshin Impact. And though they say her character is in her early 20s, to me, she feels more like a late teen, so like maybe 18, 19. And
Right.
maybe I just need to trim the wig bangs, I'm not sure, but I'm just not as happy wearing her as I thought I would be. So I'm trying a different Genshin character that's a little bit older that I also absolutely love the look of. And so I'm really excited to try that one and just see, like, okay, is this what's happening? Am I starting to enjoy characters that feel more similar to me in terms of where they are in life? So yeah, that's just kind of how I pick a character right now, but like I said, I think it's evolving yet again.
Okay. I know it's definitely been interesting to see, like, from the early 2020, where I first started like following you, to see that evolution of not just like the characters that you're doing, but like the actual like photos and the cosplay like choices that you're making is definitely like a really neat evolution to just like, scroll through and watch. Like, I know one of them that always like blows me away is the character from Kakegurui.
Oh, Kakigururi, yes.
Yumiko Jabami, because I'm
Hmm.
reading it off of your Instagram. um,
Yeah.
I don't want to get it wrong, but yeah, like you as that character, like it is like an absolutely stunning like cosplay, and the picture is really great, and it's just like all around, like it's one of the ones where I'm just like that, like I know that one.
Yeah, yeah, it's so interesting. If you look at the shoes I'm wearing with her, those are actually some business heels that I own. I For this cosplay, I bought absolutely nothing. I already had owned the entire outfit and the wig. I was sent by a company on Amazon, who wanted me to review their product. And so that was absolutely fantastic. So this cosplay actually cost me nothing to put together. And the picture that a lot of people recognize me for, I actually won the edit in a giveaway. And I am so happy with how my vision came to life with the person who edited it. I am so happy with that. And I feel like with that, I don't know that I would have been able to communicate my vision if I didn't have the experience also doing cosplay photography. And so being able to have that experience and know how to communicate what I wanted, really, I feel like just brought this image to the next level for sure. And for anybody who's curious, it is a picture of my Yumiko Jabami sitting on a fallen chess piece on a chessboard with a bunch of like really cool red lighting and smoke and everything like that on a chessboard. So yeah.
Yes. It is absolutely, it is a great picture. Let's see here. It says 25 July 16th of 2021 is when
Yes.
when you posted it, so people can
Yes.
find it.
Yes.
Now, I like that you led in to the other half of the cosplay conversation that we got is cosplay photography. Um,
Yes.
how did you, and I understand the cosplaying, but how did you decide that you wanted to also do cosplay photography?
Yeah, so I myself am a naturally far more artistic person than I sometimes let on. I am also pretty analytical, but in terms of artistics, I really enjoy fine art, and I really enjoy. And maybe that's also why I read into a lot of things with anime, where I'm like, this person quirked their brow, and I'm like, that means so much in art. Or like this person's shadow is across their face in like a Renaissance style. So things like that. And so I've been doing fine art since I was probably, oh gosh, 5. My mom signed me up for a local art class, and I had so much fun doing that. But eventually I ran out of art classes and I started taking the exact same ones all over again.
Right.
And it got to the point at one point where I'd taken the same art class like 3 times, done the exact same project 3 times. The instructor had to step out of the room and he was like, hey, like insert my real name here. Can you lead the class for a few minutes? So I, at like 10, was leading an art class. So that was really fun. But with that, I also, when I was about 10, my mom was gifted a Canon Rebel camera from my dad. And I think that at least until I got my own camera, a few years later, I used that camera more than my mother. And those pictures were all terrible. They were all terrible. But that really taught me a lot about like maybe how to hold a camera whenever you want to get like a certain angle and like, what a lens might do. Because my mom didn't really have lenses to experiment, but I was constantly Googling, but like, hey mom, you should go get this lens. And she's like, no. She just wanted pictures of her daughters.
Right.
So there are more pictures of my sisters than there are of me, which my mom, I think she's a little sad about, but she's also not sad about the fact that she didn't have to take the pictures. And so basically I was taking pictures from probably around the age of 10, and around the age of about 15, I would say, I was gifted a camera from my dad that was just a Fujifilm, like you can't even remove the lens. It's got a built-in flash. It's a terrible camera, even worse than what my mom had. And my mom's Rebel was a pretty good camera. But I think my mom was finally ready to have her own camera back. So my dad got me one. And that really gave me a lot of experience in working with a set piece of equipment and just like, okay, I don't have the ability to change anything. And I was just very confused about how the flash worked. And so that was also my first experience working with lighting, which I then found out I don't like. I'm starting to finally experiment with it again, but this time instead of an attached flash, I'm finally starting to learn how to use like other kinds of lighting. And so from that, I just really enjoyed it. And then for editing, I had an iPad mini that I got when I was about 14. And I took what I thought were the most artistic pictures ever. Looking back, they're pretty silly. Like they're things that you would probably expect like a 13, 14-year-old to be taking.
Right.
I had all of my friends from my mom's church go and buy Arizona cans of different flavors, drink all of them, and then give me the cans of all these different flavors because I only liked 2 of the flavors, so they had to help me out. And then I got a soda bottle, lined them all up in the street in front of my mom's house, and took a picture of it and edited it all pretty so it was like, vibrant colors and everything. And I still think that the editing is not bad as far as like a 13-year-old. But 13, 14-year-old, the editing is solid. But I thought I was so artistic because I was showing that like you can be different and still be delicious or whatever with Arizona bottles in a soda bottle. Like it was absolutely ridiculous. And so for a long time, I was just experimenting with photography and what the expression like that meant for me. And then when I started going to conventions, I saw a lot of people saying like, oh, like I'm booking a photo shoot. And I'd be like, oh, well, like, okay, so like they do a really cool cosplay. That makes sense. And then other people started approaching me being like, hey, I want to take your picture. And I was like, this is fun. And so I booked a photo shoot or 2. And then I realized that like, hey, wait a second. I can take good pictures of people too. And that's really fun. And cosplay is expensive. And this way, I feel like I'm creating a new cosplay piece of art with every new photo shoot. And so I started photographing. And now each time I go into a shoot, it's like I am creating something new with that cosplay with that person. And so it's kind of like an artistic collaboration for me. And so it's so much fun to do. And it's just an entirely new way for me to explore cosplay as a hobby. And I love it. And I'm at the point now where I'm like, do I enjoy cosplay or do I enjoy cosplay photography more? And I just cannot make up my mind. And it is so much fun. I love being able to bring the characters to life from what you've seen on screen to where they are now. And then because I have enjoyed it so much, I started learning special effects edits. And so I have a picture of me as Spider-Gwen where you can't tell it's me because the mask is on. This is before my wig came in the mail.
Right.
But I pulled a linear ottoman out of my bedroom into our empty third guest bedroom kind of thing that we've got upstairs. Turned off all the lights and just opened one window and had my husband squat down on the floor and take a bunch of pictures of me posing on the ottoman. And I completely redid the entire photos to where it looks like I'm in new locations. So all the Spider-Gwen pictures where I'm wearing my mask, those were all taken on the exact same day in a dimly lit spare bedroom on a cute little gray ottoman. So there's the entire secret. If you want, I can send you the before and after picture I put together that I send to some clients whenever they ask about composite edits. But they're so much fun just to be like, well, this is point A. How on earth are we going to get to point Z? And just be like, well, you got to build it. And so you got to build it. But digitally, obviously.
Absolutely. Now I'm looking at your photography Instagram, and I really was drawn to this cosplayer and I don't know how to pronounce it, Ingy Bear.
Ingy Bear,
She's
yes.
Ingy
She's
Bear.
actually one of
She's
my
doing
friends. We became friends during the pandemic, and she doesn't live that far away from me. So whenever I want to test something, I also grab her, and I'm just like, "Hey, girl, like, come on, we're gonna test some stuff."
Yeah, I like the two photos that you have for her Little Witch Academia, where
Hmm.
especially like the one where she's holding the broom and there's the light coming in on the left hand side.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that picture.
Yeah, I'm actually a little bit frustrated with it. Not with the picture itself, but the way it uploaded. For some reason, for her and I, these pictures uploaded a little bit grainy, and so I'm probably going to, at some point, archive them and share them again next year and see if they'll actually upload at their full resolution because they look so much better in full resolution. But oh my gosh, this was such a fun shoot. The location was actually, it is like 5 minutes from my house. And it is so pretty. And you just have to hit it at the right time, and it genuinely looks like you stepped right out of a forest. However, if you go directly to the left of her on the picture, there's this massive shipping facility with all these trucks driving in and out all day, and you would never know. It is so funny. But they can't ever get rid of this section because it's a historic site to Charlotte, North Carolina, and so I'm always guaranteed this photo shoot location. So
Awesome.
yeah, but what's really nice is because that big shipping facility is there, it cleared out the trees a little bit, which allows the sunlight to really shine through right there. So they did me a favor. They don't realize it, but they did me a favor.
So you go to the convention. What do you how are you deciding whether you're going to cosplay or be a photographer, or is it more that you're leaning in like the photography direction now? Like what's that mindset of what am I going to do this like for this convention?
Yeah, so I generally start planning what I'm going to cosplay way before I start accepting any photo shoots. And so what I do, I'll give you an example for this KatsuCon. What I am planning, who knows if it's even going to happen at this point, but this is my mindset for planning right now. So what I did is as soon as I got the room, I spoke to one of the other girls in the room and I was like, hey, are you bringing a Genshin Impact cosplay? Because that's currently one of the fandoms that we both cosplay from. And she was like, yes, I am. And so I decided, okay, when can you do a photo shoot? Let's book a photo shoot together. Let's do something cute. And so we booked a photo shoot for Friday morning, I believe it is. Yes, it's Friday morning. And so that automatically ruled out all of Friday morning for me to book photo shoots. And I was like, okay, well, I probably am going to want to cosplay at least one more time at KatsuCon. I mean, it's KatsuCon. Who doesn't want to? And so I was like, okay, let's carve out another time. And I was like, wait a second. I can make this really easy on myself and then just carve out the mornings. And I just don't photograph at all on Friday or Saturday morning. And I'll photograph Sunday morning because I don't feel like cosplaying, packing up and driving home all in the same day and photographing. I've done that before and I just get so tired. But that allows me to kind of understand, okay, this is what my limit is. This is time set aside for me to have fun, for me to cosplay. And then after that, in the afternoon, I'm photographing until the sun goes down. And so probably starting at like 1 or 2 p.m., that's when I start photographing for KatsuCon. However, for Holiday Matsuri, what I did instead is I knew well in advance that I finally had convinced my husband to go to a convention with me. He's more of the stay-at-home and game kind of thing. But
Right.
since he was going to be going with me, he decided he would go because it was also at a resort hotel. And so what he wanted to do was sit by the pool and relax in the sunshine all day because it was going to be warm compared to the Carolinas. And so what I did was I was like, okay, so I'm going to go in and I know that he's somebody that sleeps in. So I'm going to photograph in the morning. And then around dinner time, I'm going to want to photograph people simply because of the lighting at this venue. And so that's going to leave me, I left myself about 5 hours midday each day to do whatever I wanted. If that was hang out by the pool with my husband, I could do that. If that was cosplay, I could do that. If I wanted to go and take a nap, which I did one day, that was delightful. Definitely recommend napping at a convention. I don't know why, but you nap so well. And so I kind of go into it with what hours am I going to not photograph? So it's not necessarily that I'm just deciding what hours I am going to photograph. It's what hours am I not going to photograph? And then from there, I decide, okay, so when does the sun go down? When does the sun rise? Because again, like I said, I'm really mainly a natural light photographer. And so for me, that is a really big question of time, timing everything correctly. And so that's how I kind of decide things. It's pretty easy once I've gotten the hang of it, but I feel like I'm still getting the hang of it for each new convention. And then there's also a convention that I staff. Queen City Anime Convention happens in Charlotte, North Carolina in August. This year's dates are the 5th through 7th, so you should come on by. But what I do for that one is I'm actually the media chair, and so I have even less free time. And so I decide if I'm even going to photograph at that one at all. And if I am, how many photo shoots am I even going to allow myself? So for this past year's Queen City Anime Con, I think I allowed myself like 4 photo shoots. I was like, that's all I'm doing. Where normally I would book up to 15. So you can see like how few that is compared to my normal number. And there's people, who do photograph like 20, 25 to 30, but I'm just like, I need to stay sane. So no, thank you. That's not me.
Yeah.
And so I kind of have to go in with like, what are my expectations for this con and what are other people's expectations for me? And that's what I kind of go into every convention with. And I feel like that's the only way that I've been able to stay sane at any convention is setting aside what my expectations are going to be. And for any other cosplayer or cosplay photographer or hybrid like me who has anxiety, I think that's a really good mindset to start with. I am on medication, which does help. But just being able to go into it and say like, this is what I know I can handle makes it so much easier the entire rest of the event on myself. And that way I know like I don't stress myself out. I'm like, I told my friend that if I could make it, I could, but otherwise they aren't really expecting me. Or I decided to go to this dinner. So I just need to, like think appropriately of what I'm doing before that. I need time to change. So yeah, just really setting expectations, I think, is how I decide when I'm going to photograph and when I'm going to cosplay. Like, I know that's probably not the answer you were looking for, but honestly, it's setting expectations.
Hey, and listen, you can give me any answer because I'm not trying to say what it is or what it isn't. It's all you. So I loved getting to listen and get to see what you like, how you plan things out and how you do things. Because it's one of the few times that I've had someone that does cosplay photography on the podcast to even get to like talk about. So it's all good. I love it.
There we go.
Now, the question I always end with whenever I talk to somebody that cosplays is, what's on your list? What cosplay characters or outfits are you like wanting to do? For this year, like what do you have on your list of characters?
Yeah, so I only have 3 that I've decided I would like to accomplish this year. I know sometimes people are like, oh, I have a list of 10, and I'm just like, that doesn't feel like me. So I have a list of 3 that I want to do this year. And as new characters come up, I usually just kind of toss them in there because I don't make all of my cosplays. I buy them. I'm not even going to lie. I might make like a prop or something. I have tried to make them, and I can definitely style a wig pretty decently, but I am not very good at sewing costumes. And I'm not half bad at props, like not foam making or anything like that, but like painting a prop. So I buy my cosplays. And so for me, it's less of a time investment and more of a financial investment. But the 3 that I've chosen to do this year, and I've already bought one of them. So Ning Wong from Genshin Impact, she's the one that when I said that I wasn't quite feeling like Sucrose really fit me as well as I had hoped it would in terms of just how happy I was with her. I still love her character. I just don't know how happy I am as her. So Ning Wong is also a character from Genshin Impact, and she's a little bit older, a little bit more mature than Sucrose is, and so I'm really hoping that I like her a lot, and I also wasn't sure how I felt about really almost white hair on me, because after I did Jack Frost from Rise of the Guardians, I just did not like the white hair on me. However, when I did Mirko from My Hero Academia, I really loved that wig on me, and her hair is right about the same color, so I'm really hoping it's going to be a great mesh. Other characters that I'm interested in doing this year is one of them is Sinon from Sword Art Online's Gun Gale Online arc, not the Gun Gale show, but the Gun Gale arc from Sword Art. I really, really love that character. I think that she is a fantastic representation of what PTSD is like in a character or like in a person. So I really like her a lot. And then also, I know everybody says she's trash, but I really like Sakura Haruno from Naruto. And so I'm planning on cosplaying her. I think that her pink hair is cute. I think that she's fun. And something I really like about her is me not being a very physical person, but being more of kind of like what you would probably call like a healer support character. For me, that's what she is. And though she is a very strong character in terms of fighting ability and prowess, she doesn't choose to do that. Instead, she wants to help people. And I really like the fact that she made a choice that she's going to be happy with. And so she could fight, she can fight very well, but she didn't want to focus on that. And I really, really like that about her a lot. And I know that at one point I'm going to have to post an Instagram picture with just the caption being a trash can, but I cannot wait to do so.
That's awesome.
Wait to do so. The only downside is there's a particular wig that I want to use for Sakura Haruno. Like, there's one wig that I want to use. It is only that wig. And it's out of stock right now. It's from Arta Wigs. And so I have to wait on that wig to be in stock before I can start doing her cosplay. And I could always do a pre-order, and that's what I'll probably do. But it still needs to, like, actually be made, come from China, come to the US, and then be shipped to me. And so that's just going to take months. And so I have no idea when I'll get to complete Sakura, but I am dead set on that wig for her. So that is like a when the wig is here kind of cosplay.
Right. I gotcha. That's cool. And I like that you have the limit of like, okay, I'm only gonna do like these three are your goals for the year, because anything extra is like extra. Hooray!
Yeah, like this past year, in 2020, my goal was to simply finish off my Spider-Gwen, which by that I just had to style her wig. I wanted to finish Elizabeth Leonis because somebody had gifted me the leotard and arm socks, and so I just needed to get her wig, earring, and things like that. And I really wanted to fix up my my soy phone from Bleach, and I really wanted just to improve that one a little bit. And those were my 3 goals for cosplay this year. And I happened to add a few extra along the way, and that's just kind of how it happens for me. I'm just like, I have goals for like 2 or 3, and anything extra is just a happy bonus.
That's wonderful. For people that have listened to this episode and they're like, dang, I want to follow you and check out your work, whether it be like on the cosplay side or on the photography side, what are the best places for them to do so? Yeah,
so I am on most social platforms. In my IRL job, I work in marketing, so therefore I'm on most platforms for cosplay too. But you can find me on Instagram, you can find me on Twitter, you can find me on TikTok, but I'm not really active on TikTok. I prefer photography over videography is my personal medium. You can find me on Facebook. All of those are at Amisi. It's going to be I as an indigo, M-I as an indigo again, I as an indigo again, C as in Charlie, I as an indigo again, and then E as an elephant. So yeah, just IMIICIE, and you can find me there. I'm most active, I would say, on Instagram and Twitter though. And for Twitter, I'm an absolute hoot on Twitter. So you should definitely go follow me on Twitter and just laugh at me, because I laugh at myself all the time.
Awesome. I will make sure to have all the links in the show notes and on the Facebook page and website, so that way if you're interested in following Misi on anywhere, you can just click on it and go there and hit that button to follow. Make sure to like and comment and, let her know how awesome she is, because, she does great work. And yeah. Misi, I want to say thank you for taking the time to hang out with me and talk to me about what fandoms you're into and cosplay and photography. I learned a lot today.
Well, I am glad, and thank you for listening to me blabber on.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/talesfromthefandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.